All right, this is Keith McDaniel, and today is September the 5th, 2024, and I am at the production studio here at Roane County High School with Mr. Troy Beets. Troy, thank you for taking time to come and talk to me.
Well, thank you, Keith. It's a pleasure to be here.
Good. Now, this is for the Kingston Oral History Project. So we're going to talk about your time in Kingston, but it's also about you. So, let's just start at the beginning. Tell me, where were you born and raised?
Well, I was born and raised in Knoxville, Tennessee. Due to the interstate construction, while we moved to a little area outside of Daytona Beach, Florida, for my high school years. Went to high school in Daytona Beach and moved back up here in the fall after I graduated in 1961. Lived in Knoxville for a few years. Got married, started a family. Went to work at the plants in 1966.
Is that right?
And moved to Oak Ridge and into one of those small government houses that you're very familiar with.
Yeah.
And had the two sons, and the bigger those boys got, the smaller that house got. So we found a little place up on Alma Lane here in Kingston and moved there in the spring of 1969.
Hey, let's go back. I want to ask you some questions about your early years before we get you to Kingston. What did your parents do for a living?
Well, my mother was a housewife. She was. My father worked as a mechanic and anything to do with automotive repair, record driver, etc. in Knoxville until he had a heart attack in 1953, I believe.
Oh, okay. All right. Did you have any siblings?
I had three older sisters.
Okay.
And it's about 16 years difference between myself and the oldest sister.
Oh, wow.
And I was the only boy and the baby of the family.
I bet they looked out for you, didn't they? Or they tormented you, one of the two.
It was a little bit of both.
Probably so. So you say you went to high school in Florida.
Yes.
Okay. How big was the high school?
The graduating class in 61 was like 335 people.
That's pretty good size school.
It was. Yeah.
Did you, when you were in high school, did you have any idea of what kind of career you wanted to pursue?
Absolutely not, Keith. I tell most everyone, of course I was young, but I was 17 years old when I graduated, going on 13.
Yeah.
I was a very late maturing individual, just tall and skinny like a rail, but I had no idea what I wanted to do.
So after high school, did you go to college?
I did not go to college.
Okay. All right. And so you said after you graduated high school, y'all moved back to East Tennessee.
Yes.
Is that correct? Okay. All right. So let's talk a little bit about your work. So you came back. I figure you weren't going to school. You probably had to get a job. So tell me about that.
Well, I guess it really started in 1965 when I went to work at Standard Knitting Mill in Knoxville, which is an old place, and went to work in what they call the IBM section, which was they were just starting to use computers and technology to ship out and to run the knitting mill. And when I was hired in, I was lucky enough to get into that particular section of the warehouse and started learning a little bit about punched cards and computers, etc. And that led me to being a good applicant for a position that was open at Oak Ridge. And I went to work at K25 in April the 4th of 1966 in the information technology section, as we call it now.
Right.
Back in those days, it was IBM.
Right.
Everything to do with a computer was IBM.
Oh, sure, absolutely. because they were. I mean, they were the leader. They were the ones, and they were the only ones that were doing like the big applications.
Big
and
mainframe computers. We had
Yeah.
the largest mainframe computer shop east of the Mississippi.
And at that time in '66, I guess K25. Boy, it was cranking it out, wasn't it? It was going strong.
Well, we were going strong, but they had shut down part of the gaseous diffusion plant. I think probably only one building, what they call K33, I think, was still actually, when I went to work there, processing. But K25s, 27, 29, it just about in an idle state.
Oh, is that right?
Hadn't started cleaning them up or anything. They just shut them down, so to speak.
Now, was the centrifuge building built then?
No, not in '66.
Okay.
Not in '66. Probably the big building out front there probably was built in the mid '70s.
Okay. So, what do you remember about your work there? I mean, were there particular people that made an impact on you, or?
Oh, absolutely. The thing that I still think about is the diversity of people that were there. I had come from not a sheltered environment, but an environment that just mostly included East Tennessee people. You know, my cousins and school, and of course what I went to Florida was a little bit different. But again, I wasn't in a learning mode as much as I was when I come back up here. But there were people there from everywhere. You know, and you had to adapt to them some. You know, learning how that somebody that's Oriental, for instance, when they walk down the hall and they drop their eyes and look up this way, that doesn't mean they're avoiding you. It's a way of respect. And I can remember learning that. Is to have to adapt. But I worked with some really smart people back in their days, in the ground floor of really computers. When supercomputer wasn't even a word back in those days.
Sure.
These are little analog type of stuff, everything. But, just very fortunate. I had a wonderful career. Worked with some wonderful people. Retired in 1998.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. So did you stay there the whole time?
Well, I wound up working at all three plants.
Oh, did you?
Which was absolutely a blessing. I had intended on staying in my little niche where I had started for my whole career, and an opportunity came up to move to Y12.
Okay.
And I took that, and then almost immediately another opportunity came up for me at the National Lab. And about 1988, I guess it was, I moved to the computer room at X10.
So you stayed in the computer field your whole career.
I got out of it a little bit. In the latter part of my years, I had a little group called Technical Services, which serviced all three plants.
Oh, okay.
So we were available to go out and help people learn the new desktop applications.
Oh, yeah.
But it was still computers. It just wasn't the mainframes.
And that was, I guess that was in the probably mid-'80s or so? Something like that? Mid to late 80s?
Yeah, more like the late 80s.
Because that was when desktop computers really kind of came on strong there.
And I loved it. You know, got to meet so many people and got to see how all three plants worked, which is a little bit unusual. There are some people that do that, but most of us just hired in and did our jobs and come home.
Well, you know, all three plants are very different.
Yes.
You know, the culture of each is very different.
Absolutely.
You know, of course, they called the OR&L the country club, you know.
Absolutely.
and
had the best cafeteria.
Yeah. And Y12 is really more of the blue collar type of work. And then K-25, it was kind of its own thing.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, so you stayed there until you retired, and you said 99, is that correct?
98.
98, okay. So how did you end up, now you had mentioned this, I kind of got you through there. You said you were in Oak Ridge, you lived in Oak Ridge, but you decided the house was getting too small with the kids, so you found a place in Kingston, is that correct? On Alma Lane.
That's it.
Which is back up above the Cherokee School there, isn't it?
That's it, yes, sir.
Yeah. So when did you move there? What year?
We moved there in 1969.
Okay.
And that little house, the bigger those boys got, it started getting smaller too.
Yeah.
So we wound up buying a house out in what's called Lawnville Meadows, out near the elementary school now.
Right.
And moved into that house in October of 1974 and have been there ever since.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
It'll be 50 years in that one house
Oh, my goodness.
this October.
My goodness.
Yeah.
I know when my mom passed away a few years ago, Dad had passed away. Dad lived to 91 and Mom lived to 88, but the house she was living in before she went into Jamestown for a couple of years was the same house they brought me home from the hospital to. They'd moved into that house in 56 and lived there the entire time. They're on Hillcrest Lane. They're back behind Cherokee School. But anyway, so yeah, it was I think it was like 64 years or something like that that they'd been in that house. But so tell me, let's talk a little bit about your involvement in Kingston, in the community, in politics, and all that kind of stuff. When did that start?
When we moved here in '69, my boys were in the second grade and 3 years old, I guess.
Yeah.
3 and 7. And I had my philosophy had kind of been was not what you can do for your kids, but what you can do with them.
Mm-hmm.
That was what Carolyn and I kind of operated on.
Yeah.
So we got pretty big in the youth sports thing.
Yeah.
I had actually had helped when we lived in Knoxville with a youth league football team over there. And then when I moved to Oak Ridge, I actually coached the Little League football team at the Oak Ridge Boys Club.
Right.
The years that we lived up there.
Which still goes strong.
It is still Lawrence Hahn.
Yeah.
You probably remember those people.
Oh yeah.
Bob Smith and really good people. And when I moved to Kingston, of course, we started looking for a baseball for the oldest son. And a gentleman from the Optimist Club by the name of Bobby Bedwell.
Right.
Bobby is here. Stopped by my house one afternoon and brought a gentleman with him by the name of Sonny Arp. Do you remember Sonny?
I sure do.
I did not know Sonny, but I had met Mr. Bedwell because his son and my son were in the same grade at school.
Right.
And they come and introduced Mr. Arp, and I said, "What can I do for you?" And Sonny, if you can picture him this way, he says, "I want you to coach our little 65-pound Packer football team." And I said, "Really?" I said, "You don't even know me." He said, "I know enough about you." He said, "I need somebody that can come in here and do this and get this team started." And he said, "I know what you've done in Oak Ridge." He knew somebody evidently.
Yeah.
So, long story, but I was surprised and, of course, honored, And it was the Optimist Club that was the starter of that, and a gentleman named Fousey Cox. You remember Fousey Cox?
No, I don't remember.
Yeah, he and Sonny, and they lived there in Cherokee Hills.
Is that right?
Yeah, in the cul-de-sac there.
Yeah.
But anyway, I got started with the football. And a little bit later on that year, I got involved in the Kingston JCs.
Right. I remember that.
Yeah, Dick Keelan, Bill Cochran, Ike Shepard, Matt Garbett, Earl Robinson was. Anyways, some of the big. The Optimus Club ran the baseball and the football programs for youth kids. So
Right.
I had established a little bit of rapport with those people. But they had a little basketball program come in, and the JCs decided they would sponsor or run the basketball program.
Oh, okay.
And then they said, "Oh well, Beets, you used to do this in Knoxville, right?" I said, "Well, yeah, I had a little basketball team in Knoxville." And the Knoxville Biddy Leagues, they were called back in those days. And make a long story short, what had started as a basketball program here, they were still using the 10-foot goals and the big basketballs for the little kids.
Right.
And I told them, that's not good. That's not good. We need to lower the goals and make the ball a little smaller.
Yeah.
So that we can teach them how to play ball, and shoot, not throw the ball and all.
Right.
And they said, "Well, that costs money." You know? And I said, "Well, surely we can get the money." You know, so we got the money and built the little goals that they dropped down over the 10-foot goals and made them 8-foot goals. And I remember, you remember Ed Harrison?
Oh, yeah.
Down there. I went down there, and he didn't give us the smaller basketballs, and he'd give us the big boat horns, you know, to signify timeout and quarters that we used.
Sure.
So we started that, and I used the boys basketball players as referees.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
And this took place in the gym here, right?
In Roane County High School.
Yeah, Roane
gym.
County High School gym.
Right here where it's at.
You know, I played that league 1 year.
Yeah.
I've got a trophy someplace. We won. It wasn't a participation trophy either. It was a real trophy. I did not contribute to the winning season, but the rest of my team did.
Well, we had a good time. Me and Larry Medley, Charlie Francis, that were involved in it so much, and I ran that program for about 3 years. And about the third year, it got to where it could kind of run itself by using the boys to be the referees. Yeah, and you know, if you remember Stan Huff and Bobby Brooksbank was. Trying to think of some of the other kids from that era that actually they refereed the games for a quarter a game.
Is that right?
So that was all that we could give them. But
well, still back in the '60s, I mean, that wasn't anything to sneeze at, you know.
Yeah, they could make a buck or so.
Yeah.
Every Saturday, but they were good kids. Golly bum. And this was. Those boys graduated in about 74. So this is like 71, 2, and 73.
I remember a guy named Austin.
Austin Clark.
Austin Clark.
Yeah.
And, what's his name? He's
Eugene Martin. Eugene Martin played with Austin.
Is that right? I remember Austin Clark.
Yeah.
Was a star basketball player. And then I guess Robinette. Leonard. Did Leonard play? I think he did.
That doesn't ring a bell.
He might have been before then. He might have been a little bit older.
Tim Clemens was on that group.
Tim.
With and then Jim Paris.
Yeah, and Jim Paris.
You remember Jim Paris?
Oh, yeah, we grew up together.
Yeah. And
so.
You're making me feel old.
But, we grew up together.
But anyway, that's how I got involved, and I wound up coaching baseball with Mr. Bedwell in the Optimus Club, and formed such a wonderful, wonderful friendship with he and his wife, Frances Bedwell.
Sure.
Most people remember her as
yeah.
the banker lady.
Yeah. Now, was this the Dixie Youth? Was it the Optimist?
It was not Dixie Youth at that time. It was Optimist Club. It soon became Dixie Youth.
Okay.
Soon became Big Jim Williams. You remember Big Jim?
No, I don't remember.
He was kind of the commissioner of the baseball league. He was a one man.
Yeah, I don't think I remember him.
If you'd met him, you would have remembered him. He ran it with a iron fist, so to speak. And we had a good program. Had some really good athletes to come through at that time. Bobby Brooksbank's younger brother Roger, who's a doctor now, went to school, and then of course Carl Bedwell, who is a retired executive with.
Now, was that Mr. Bedwell's oldest son?
Youngest son.
Youngest son. Okay.
The oldest son was Kendall.
Kendall, yeah. Kendall and I went to school together.
He played on the '74 team.
Yeah.
He inherited the quarterback situation in the '74 team.
Right.
Kendall passed away.
He did
just a couple of years ago. And
I saw that.
I still talk with Miss Bedwell monthly, tri-weekly, or something like that. She's still doing well.
Yeah, we're Facebook friends. I stay in touch with her a little bit myself.
She is something.
Because Mr. Bedwell was at 1 year was my baseball coach. Bobby was. Yeah.
And what year would that have been?
Well, see, I played for 11 years. I started when I was 5, and it would have been that I was born in 57, so 63 maybe, 63 until 73, 74. Yeah. So,
but that's how I got started. Was working with the youth, and it was across all three things.
Right.
One of the cute things. Do you remember Mr. Vernon Malone?
That name rings a bell.
From out on Highway 70, he's a gentleman that had to talk real something was.
That name is familiar, but I don't remember.
Just kind of a gentleman that was short in stature, but a big man, and for years, maybe like 2 or 3 years after that, I turned the basketball program over to someone else. Mr. Malone would call me and want to know when the basketball program was starting and what I was going to do at all. And I remember Shorty Malone.
Shorty Malone.
And I say that with the deepest respect.
Right.
His son's name was Vernon, that went to school with the boys that graduated in 79. That was the good basketball team.
Yeah. So you got started in sports and athletics. How did that transition to leadership roles and the community?
Well, when probably in the mid-'70s, I guess, and I had at that time I'd gotten involved with the Roane County High School Booster Club, and we had a pretty good thing going there. Mr. Porter was the principal at that time.
Right, Sam Porter.
And Hal F.U. Was the assistant. So I'd gotten involved at that and was not doing as much with the Little League. The youngest son, I stayed with him through the Little League years till he was about 12.
Right.
And but anyway, there was a school board position came open in what would have been 1980.
Oh, okay.
So Jay had graduated in 79. Doug was, of course, still in school. But the people that I had worked with so many years in the school system and parents and all, I had developed a little bit of a rapport across through. And so I was approached about running for school board.
Okay.
And I had no anything about running for school board or getting into politics. I was happy doing what I was doing and had a good thing there. So one thing led to another, and the next thing I knew, I was running for school board.
Mm-hmm.
And the gentleman that had the seat that was going to resign changed his mind.
Oh, is that right?
And the gentleman was the finest gentleman and the best school board member that Roane County has ever had, and in all company included, was Dr. Tom Pickle.
Yes, right.
He defeated me in the race.
Yeah.
In my very first political race, he beat me, and he was so gracious.
Well, if you're going to be beat, you can't pick anybody else that'd be any better to beat you than Tom Pickle.
But I didn't know. I was a pretty competitive person back in those days.
Right.
So when I called him and congratulated him,
sure.
He was so gracious.
Mm-hmm.
And told me, he said, now you keep on doing this. He said, we need young people like you. He'd say young people.
Right.
He'd say, we need young people like you involved in this. And he said, you're just great. He says, it just, he said, I just felt like I needed one more term. He says, it wasn't against you. And,
right.
And I'm gritting my teeth, on the phone. And so I tucked my tail between my legs and run off. And in 1982, the seat, another seat came open in our district. And I ran for it, and of course was elected. Yeah. And served on the school board with Dr. Pickle, and he mentored me. He just took me under his arm and just told me and showed me how to be a good school board member. And if people think I was a good school board member, and I stayed there 15 years. I owe it all to Dr. Tom Pickle. He was a great man.
So you were you were a school board member for 15 years.
That's correct.
What were some of the big issues that y'all had to deal with?
Well, of course, the buildings. There hadn't been anything done to the buildings since the 50s. There'd been no real building program. Right. And there'd been very little maintenance. And the schools were really in pretty bad shape. So from, I guess the first year I was chairman was 85. I went on in 82 and was chairman in 85. And we started really seriously looking into some type of a building program, or how are we going to take care of what that we've got. Sure. So that consumed a lot of time, effort, and money. And finally, in the early 90s, we were successful in getting a building program. Right. When that building program is the one that actually built Kingston Elementary School, and it made where we're at here now. That used to be the elementary school, part of the high school in a refurbishment. I think we spent about $3 million here in early 90 money on this. Rockwood got a new gym down there and all, and that's what that building program was. But that consumed a lot. I'm sure of what was going on. And then there was a time there in the early 90s. Most people here remember when children of special needs, etc., went to Michael Dunn for school. Yeah. But then in the early 90s, the government said if you're going to get government money, you're going to bring those kids into the regular classroom,
Right.
in inclusion, and which was a good thing. I mean, it helped. I think not only the special needs children, but it helped the other children to interact with kids that were different than they are.
Sure.
But boy, you talk about a change.
Oh, yeah.
And how people react differently to change and all.
And people don't like change. That's just
we could fill up the morning.
Oh, sure, of course,
Of
course.
And if you're something of a change agent, the guy that wants to change a basketball goes. That made me a change agent.
Oh, I'm sure.
What's he doing coming down here? He's from Knoxville,
right?
Wanting
Exactly.
to change. But that was two of the bigger things that I thought was that. And a lot of people never really realized the strain that it put on the educational system for inclusion. But it needed to happen.
Right.
And we made it work. Mm-hmm. But it wasn't just something you just opened the door. And it happened. And so, but
now let me ask you: was in the building program and finding the money, the way that I understand things is the school board, they come up with a plan, but they have to get the county commission. They have to get money from the county for something like
exactly.
that.
Yeah.
Okay, so has that relationship always been contentious, or was there a time when it was, easier?
Well, there are times when the two bodies could work together.
Right.
But there's always the big thing of money up here.
Yeah.
Really, the big reason that we got the early 90 building program was because we did it without a tax increase.
Yeah. Right.
That was a big hurdle.
That was much easier, wasn't it?
And we were not closing a school.
Yeah, right.
We didn't do that, and it was amazing the interaction between that county commission and and the school board.
Yeah, sure.
And what I will say is there were some meetings and where there wasn't any cameras and there was several cuss words and several emotional things to where we finally sat down and come up with a plan that the core group of us knew would work.
Right.
If this happens, we can make this work.
Yeah.
And through a lot of hard work and letting some people think it was their idea.
Of course.
That got us a vote or two, and then we threw a few dollars to some people that thought that they wanted whatever they wanted. And I'm not saying we bought their votes,
right?
But we made it easier to get their votes.
Sure.
And that building program passed by one vote.
Is that right?
And Don Wicks from Judge Wicks's father from Rockwood.
Now, was consolidation? Was it even a thought back then?
Not very much. I will say that nobody really wanted, even back then, to give up their school.
Right.
I can remember some very emotional Midway people.
Yeah.
And and when you travel with your kids in basketball in high school, you go all over this end of the state now.
Oh, sure.
And there's not anybody anywhere that had any more pride in their community school than the people at Midway. And they could graduate 36 people a year, for instance.
Yeah.
But that that they didn't want anything else.
Yeah.
They did not want their kid to be exposed to Latin or to Spanish or they wanted him to graduate from Midway.
Right.
And it took me a while to understand that, but I forget, one of the Roses, I think, described to me, and he said, well, what you don't understand, Beets, is that school is our community.
Well, it is.
And he said, even if you understood that, you couldn't feel it like that we do, but we feel like that if that school is gone, then our community's gone.
Right.
And they still feel that way.
Well, and to be quite honest, that sort of makes sense. They're so far out.
Yeah.
It would be hard to consolidate Midway or Oliver Springs. It would be hard to consolidate those.
Well,
and of course, that's an argument.
That's arguments.
That's an argument.
And that's part of the school system and the county commission. It's neat. And I guess I don't know how many other people have been on the county commission and or the school board.
Yeah.
I don't think there's. I was told one time that I was the only person that had been the mayor of the city.
Yeah.
Chairman of the school board and chairman of the county commission, and all.
Right.
So I can, with that, I can argue a whole lot of different points.
Sure, of course.
And have a feeling for them rather than just to read about them.
Oh, yeah.
But it could be done. We proved that it could be done.
Yeah.
Just have a building program and all. And I think that to this day, I was always a proponent of 2 high schools.
Right.
And we're talking in the 1980s.
Right.
That has been here is 2 high schools. Not the one mega school, but 2 really nice schools. And I hope someday we come to that.
So I'm not trying to put you on the spot here or anything, but this has been going on for 30, 40 years, talk about a consolidated school system, and because these buildings are, you had issues back then, we got a lot of the same issues now. So, these buildings are just falling apart. I had last spring, I was sitting in my classroom next door, because my classroom's next door, and all of a sudden a piece of the ceiling just fell off onto a little piece, but it fell onto the desk of a student sitting there. And so I had Mr. Matthews call maintenance, and they came out and said, well, it's not leaking. There's no water up there. He says, this building is just old. So, Yeah. But anyway, so what are your thoughts about the current plan? And you can say no comment if you want to, or you can expound upon what you think about it.
Well, the face of the county commission changed 2 elections ago.
Right.
The face. This year, I think the face of the school board is changing. We lost a 40-year member, for instance. That has to change. I think there's going to be a period here when there's some doors open for communication between the 2 bodies.
Yeah.
I don't know whom on either body is going to be able to meet and have those meetings to where that bad words are said and feelings are expressed. But it's going to take something like that for them to ever go. We missed a beautiful chance 8 years ago, I guess. Is that right? 7. When they were down to where the schools were on their last thread of hope as far as financing.
Right.
And the county commission was sitting over here and could have said, well, if you do this, we'll fund this.
Right.
We'll do this. But because some very powerful individuals got involved in it at that time. Said, no, we're going to give them what they want.
Yeah.
We're going to give them what they want. And they did.
Mm-hmm.
They rescued, they actually had a chance to, where nobody would have been blamed for it.
Right.
Neither side.
Mm-hmm.
But some people didn't want to lose their little schools.
Yeah, they didn't lose their school.
So the funding was made available, and then here we are today.
Mm-hmm.
All we did was sustain what that we had.
Right.
And we hadn't really made it any better.
Mm-hmm.
So
after the school board, and let's continue talking about that. Did you go on? You said you were chairman of the county commission.
Yes.
For how long did that last?
I went on the county commission in 2002.
Mm-hmm.
And was reelected in 2006.
Mm-hmm.
And in 6, 7, 8, 9, I was the chairman of the county commission. I served 8 years over there, 15 years on the school board,
right.
8 years in the county commission, 4 as the chairman.
Who was the county executive at that point?
Mike Farmer was
Farmer.
The years I was chairman.
Okay.
Ken Yeager was the first 4 years I was there.
Right.
Mr. Una Mae Kaufman was the chairman the first 4 years I was on the
Okay.
county commission.
All right. Okay. What were some of the just briefly, what were some of the big challenges and the big successes during those years that you were on the county commission?
Well, the jail was a big.
Oh yeah, that was when that all took
during
place.
That period of time, they wanted to move the jail out of Kingston.
Mm-hmm.
And they didn't want to move it out of Kingston because it was the right thing to do. They wanted to move it out of Kingston so they could hurt Kingston.
Yeah.
And it was a tremendous amount of energy on both sides.
Mm-hmm.
Those that were wanted to do it really thought this is our best chance to do it. It's kind of like the other situation I described.
Mm-hmm.
The people and some people in Kingston didn't care if the jail
was there,
the courthouse here. Some of those we don't want to change. So.
Yeah, sure.
So that took a while. We actually took that to a referendum.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, and reminds me, we had a referendum on the schools in early 90s after the building program.
Yeah.
Consolidation, and it was defeated too. And,
right.
And then moving to jail was defeated.
Defeated, yeah.
But that took up a lot of energy.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, now Senator Yeager, he was the county executive at that time.
Mm-hmm.
Trying to think of as any of the course of schools.
Schools
were by that time we're coming back around to needing more attention, or had some people decided that they weren't happy with the status quo, and there's always the status quo people over here.
Of course. What was the relationship like, and how did it affect Roane County? By this time, probably most things had settled down in the Oak Ridge part of Roane County, as far as the Tennessee Technology Park, and there was a few little businesses going in there, but nothing major was happening. Right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah. There hadn't been a whole lot major happen there. Been a lot of talk, but now there's starting to be, it looks like.
Well, it was a deal, and even back in those years when I was just on the commission, we tried to work really hard to bring businesses, et cetera, and we got the industrial park up there. We finally got the interchange up there.
Yeah.
A lot of good people worked on that to make that happen, where we could do that. But the Horizon Center up there, and I know you're very familiar with that.
Yeah.
That looks like to me to be the most ideal place to start a business or put a business there was.
Yeah.
And it has set up there since 2003, 4. and we just couldn't do it. And I understand why people would not want to go to the Heritage Center because of, at that time, it really wasn't cleaned up.
It wasn't cleaned up, no.
We spruced it up, but we didn't clean it up.
Yeah.
So those are two industrial parks, that we have that we should have had people in here.
Yeah, right.
And we, as leaders of the county, did not do a good job at that.
Right.
And I did say we.
Right.
But we tried to work with Oak Ridge people, and we finally got some procedures and some documents that we could both agree on. But what would have normally took, maybe 2 days, maybe 3 days at the most to do, what do you want?
Be months and months.
In years, we just could not. It was almost like that if they went into the Horizon Center up there, that it had to be under Oak Ridge or it had to be under Roane County. It couldn't be a
couldn't be both.
It could not, for some reason. And I can't tell you the pictures I've got of where we went up there and took pictures and shaking hands and doing all that. But
sure.
The undercurrent was it said that's going to be mine.
I'll tell you funny, and I'm sure you've heard this, but I live in Oak Ridge. I've lived in Oak Ridge for 30-something years, but I'm a Kingston boy. I'm from Kingston. But one of the things I've learned they say about people from Oak Ridge, they say is, you can tell somebody from Oak Ridge, but you can't tell them much.
You can't. Exactly. And that was part of, you're learning how to deal with those darn Yankees that worked up there for us. But
well, so let's get you into, when did you get on the city council?
Well, in 2004, I guess it was, I had been on the county commission for 2 years, and that was all. When I retired, I didn't want to do anything.
Right.
But I let people talk me into to doing this. I'm a softy at that. But a gentleman that used to be the mayor of the city of Kingston came to me and said, "We need you to run for mayor." I said, "Mayor? I don't need to be the mayor." I said, what I'm doing, we got to have you. We got to have you. And he said, we have to, and they kiss up to you.
Right,
I guess.
sure, of course.
Look what you did here, look what you did there, and you're a shoe-in, we got to do this. So.
And of course, everybody knew you. I mean, everybody knew who you were.
Yeah, that was the thing. Everybody knows you, and everybody knows your kids. Everybody knows your wife.
Oh, yeah,
and,
sure.
There's not any skeletons in your closet, and et cetera, et cetera. And the next thing I know, I'm running for mayor. And got elected.
Yeah.
And I thought we was in pretty good shape. I took office on the 1st of July in 2005, and in August, or late July, early August, the city manager and budget director called me in and said, Mr. Beets said, we need to have a 40% tax increase.
Oh, wow.
And what are you talking about?
Yeah.
And make a long story short, they had spent the reserves, previous, and I looked at a paper before I left this morning.
Yeah.
For 6 years, they had been spending the reserve.
Yeah.
And the reserve at present expenditures would have been $36,000 when it should have been $300,000.
Right.
So that boom, just, it hit me right in the face, and you got to have a tax increase or you're going to have to shut down.
Yeah.
So we did. Of course, I had 2 brand new council members that had never served, Lord Cook and Marty Miles. And anyway, we come up with a plan with the help from the Tennessee Municipal League and
Right.
and other people, what we had to do,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and it wasn't a choice.
Oh, sure.
You have to do this or you're going to shut down, you're going to default,
Yeah.
et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So we come up with a plan and through some of those meetings that we talked about earlier,
Yeah.
we got the necessary votes and got it done, and then they started a recall effort.
Is that right?
Yeah, and Lord, that went on for 6, 8 months, and
Uh-huh.
they had dead people signing petitions to get us recalled.
Oh, man.
Honest.
Wow.
And but anyway, we did that and got us over that very, very first hump. But it was hard.
Yeah.
It was hard.
Uh-huh.
And I'm not casting stones backwards, but
There's some bad decisions made along the way, wasn't there?
yes, sir. Yes,
Yeah.
sir. That's a good, nice way of putting it.
Mm-hmm.
There was some, and more than anything, there was some decisions that needed to be made that weren't made.
That weren't made, correct,
Yeah,
right.
And people just, we were actually paying for the insurance for city council members.
Yeah.
And things, thousands and thousands of dollars for that, and
Wow.
things like that. So we kind of got it straightened out. I had a gentleman I worked with by the name of Jim Pinkerton, who absolutely one of the highest quality men.
Yeah.
I think of him in the same light that I think of Dr. Pickle.
Right.
He's a
right.
good man. But with his help and not being afraid to catch an arrow or two,
Yeah.
well, we were able to.
Let me ask you a question. You've been involved, in the community and the politics in the community. How do you survive small town politics? Because it's a different. I guess politics is politics wherever you go, but in a small town, everybody knows everybody else.
Yeah, and in some ways, yeah, I have to think about that. Sorry. In some ways, if you're of the right mind, being in a small town is better.
Yeah.
Because one, if you want to do right, and you're not going to do anything that's wrong to where somebody can
Right.
get you. One of the things that I'm the most proud of is when someone comes up and says, Mr. Beets said, your integrity's never, ever been questioned.
Mm-hmm.
I've served 32 years of elected service.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know how many other years I've been on appointed boards. And,
Right.
and, I serve on the election commission now.
Yeah.
And it's just a way of doing it. One, you have to have a supportive family.
Mm-hmm.
My wife, she understood what I was trying to do.
Right.
And supported me in a way. And people look at her and say, well, if she says he's all right, I guess he's all right.
Right.
But having the ability to look at things that you got done
Uh-huh.
is kind of what fed me.
Right.
As much as anything. Getting this building program that we got,
Mm-hmm.
it wasn't what everybody wanted,
Mm-hmm.
but this building program here was something that hadn't been done in 50 years.
Right. Right.
Yeah. And in the city, the little things, when I become mayor in 2005, they had $400,000 of state money that they were fixing to lose because they didn't have a project to put it in. And through Mr. Pinkerton's help and some other people and helped us in Nashville and all, we took that $400,000 and lit the Galahar Road interchange out there.
Yeah.
It wasn't lit. So that was good. They had multi-million dollars in grants for walking trails or something. And we were going to lose that.
Yeah.
Because nobody had done anything.
Right.
And we wound up on in a long story.
Mm-hmm.
But we went to Nashville, and I guess I'd been mayor about 3 months. At that time, right in the middle of the recall and all that. Anyway, we went, and a young man by the name of Joe Caldwell went with us.
Sure.
As just to ride over there, and we were going to go beg and whatever they do. And we were in the room begging, don't take our millions of dollars away from us.
Right.
Well, you hadn't used it, Mr. Beets. You had it over all these years, and they
right. Sure.
And I said, they're not anyway. Give me some time. I said, just give me some time.
Right.
Can't do it. And Joe Caldwell come up with an idea. He said, what if we do this? Does that mean we started to spend the money? And the people in Nashville, said, and did that and did that, and said, well, I think that would work. And I said, how soon can we do that, Mr. Pinkerton? And he said, tomorrow.
Is that right?
Yeah. So
wow.
With that, in Joe Caldwell's intervention, if you look at the plaque out there, at the walking trail that was built with that money, it says special contributor Joe Caldwell.
Is that right?
Yeah.
That's great.
And we would have never had that walking trail without that. So that was a part.
Right.
And then we come up with the turn lane, just small things, but the turn lane down here at going south on 58.
Yeah.
I called the man and said, well, I got to have some help in Nashville. He said, well, what's going on? He said, can you do this? Can you do that? And I said, well, if it will make us. So we did the little thing. Now we got a turn lane, and a lot of people don't realize what a sweet thing that is.
Sure.
That have never had to back up to the dike to turn right.
Sure. Well, let's kind of wrap this up here a little bit. That's okay, but this is perfect. What you did.
Sound like it's about me, and I don't want to.
No, this is about you. This is about you. Did you ever think about leaving Kingston?
No.
Why?
Well, we had roots and friends here as much as anything. Now, we made plans, my wife and I, that if we ever did decide that we could do, what we wanted to do was move to Florida like everybody else. And
sure.
We had some property there, and we sold that property and decided that we're not going to move down there. So, but the people here at Kingston, for the most part, for all the years that I have been here, have really been, I don't know the word, supportive, receptive, understanding.
Yeah. A real sense of community, isn't there? There's a real sense of community.
And maybe it's more than community. I don't know, purpose.
Yeah, sure.
Maybe the sense of purpose. This is what I was purposed to do.
Sure.
I don't know, but I've had a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful career here in the 50 years that I've lived in the same house. I had the same friends, and thankfully there's still a bunch of us still alive. Yeah. And
speaking of which, you just recently lost your wife, I understand. Is that correct?
She died 2 years ago in March.
Is that right? Yes. I'm sorry for you.
Well, thank you, Keith. She was Kingston's first lady.
Yeah.
She enjoyed that role. As much as anything that I did in politics.
Right.
And, she was known across the state. I would take her to conferences for the Tennessee Municipal League, for the County Commissioners Association, for the school board thing.
Right.
And everybody just loved her and appreciated the way that she always seemed to support me, and she did.
Yeah, sure.
And she enjoyed that. And as much as anything, she would just light up when people would call her First Lady.
Oh, yeah. Well, Mr. Beets, thank you so much for coming in and talking to me today. I appreciate it.
Oh, well, seemed like all we've done talk about me, but
That's all right. That's all right. This is, there's going to be generations that after you and I are long gone that are going to be watching this, and it's going to be good for them to hear about the way things were.
yes, and that's another thing. When I became on the school board,
Uh-huh.
for instance, there weren't any pictures hardly of the prior school boards.
Is that right?
Yeah. So I said, we're going to have a picture made at least every election.
Sure.
And the same way when I became county commissioner, I said, there were no pictures of the county commissions except what somebody had taken.
Sure.
So I kind of started a little thing when I was chairman of
Having pictures made.
having pictures to leave for people.
Sure.
Because I love to go back and look at them and say, oh, that was when Ken Yeager was 20 years old.
Oh,
You know,
yeah.
those
absolutely.
are fun. So maybe somebody will look at this and say it's fun.
They will. They will. All right. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
My pleasure, sir.
Okay.
Good luck.